Good evening and welcome to the Stephen Leeson Show, brought to you live from the Scientology Community Centre here in Dublin. Hello, Ange.
Hello, Stephen. It's going to be a great show this evening.
I'm really looking forward to it.
Me too.
Folks, tonight our show is entirely devoted to the world of acting, directing and writing for both stage and screen. And our guest is John Connors. John is an Irish traveller actor, screenwriter, documentary, filmmaker and playwright. And he's best known for his role as Patrick Ward in the Irish crime drama series Love Hate, for which he was nominated for Best Supporting Actor in the 2016 Irish Film and Television Awards. He's an activist for the rights of the traveller community, and he's here with us tonight. John, welcome to the show. Delighted to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome, John. I'm so excited. I'm looking forward to interviewing. We're looking forward to interviewing
But you haven't seen any of my films then.
I know. Don't tell anybody. I'm a little bit dizzy now, there's no doubt about it, but I will, I promise. Yeah. Maybe it's a good thing. Maybe I can come in just not knowing anything.
I don't watch them either.
We never look back on things we do, sure we don't.
Absolutely not. Well, for me as an actor anyway, just watching yourself on screen is horrible. Like, you usually do the first premiere screening because you don't want to, as an actor anyway, you don't want to piss off the director or anybody that you work with, so you just go and watch it and then you go, I'm never going to watch that again, you know.
I think it's very hard to look back on anything that you've ever done yourself because you've just put it apart, and the things that you think as mistakes, people don't notice.
For sure, yeah. I definitely find that on screen because especially when you're working on an Irish film on a low budget, small schedule, you could be shooting a feature film, 90 pages in 15 days, you know, mistakes are going to happen. Whereas on stage, you get to have 6 weeks rehearsal, you get to stay in the flow, it's completely different. And plus, it's not there forever out in the ether, people get to see it and judge it forever, so yeah, they're completely different mediums.
I have to say, Stephen, it's good to see him smiling, isn't it? We've been looking at we've been looking at your films all afternoon and you weren't smiling in any of them.
It's kind of true though, yeah. Like, I'm a fan, as I told you already anyway, so I've watched some of the movies, not all of them that you've done, like, you know. But can we go right back to the start of how you got into acting and the whole lot? And you tell us what you can, like, you know.
Okay, now we're ready to go heavy. So, I mean, I suppose when I was a teenager, boxing was the thing for me. I was obsessed with boxing.
I couldn't believe that, actually. I didn't realise that.
So, I know I'm a fat one, but is that what it is? You can see me even though.
You watch the language.
Oh, you don't like the language here? It's mad that just language has so much meaning, isn't it?
Yeah,
that can offend so many people. You know when you say that word in America, it's like everybody's, Anyway,
we won't go there, come on.
But anyway, I got into boxing basically as a teenager.
You're the first, by the way.
I'm the first ever say that word. Yeah! I'm in my own club. Brilliant. That'd be the second time I say that in a minute. So I got into boxing basically at a young age, and I was just down to getting bullied where I was from. I was getting bullied kind of all roads. And I decided to join boxing, and joined it, and within 6 months I won a Dublin's, the leagues, and All Ireland's title, first person in the club in years, and did the same the next year, and the same the next year, and I won a 4-nation gold medal, which is England, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. And boxing became the dream, and I was always going to be a professional boxer. That was the aim. And then when I hit mid-teens, I discovered discovered kebabs and Guinness and women, and they were my downfall. That combined with the fact that I got injured, and I was kind of getting depressed and not knowing where it was coming from. So it was like a perfect storm around 17. And then I lost a couple of fights that, against fellas that I shouldn't have lost, or fellas I even beat previously. And then I got another injury, and I had a kind of downward spiral of depression that went on for about 2 or 3 years. And I was involved in, street fighting, bare knuckle fighting, mad stuff. And when I was 20 years of age, I was on death's door, basically committed to the idea I was going to kill myself. And like a guardian angel, my brother Joe stepped in and knocked on my room door and said to me, "Are you going to kill yourself?" And I didn't want to say that I was because, toxic masculinity and all that. I know that's popular right now, and masculinity as a whole gets called toxic, and I disagree with that. But I think the toxic part of masculinity is repressing your own emotions and not communicating yourself. And I think that's there a long, long time, and we're still trying to get through that. And in Ireland, I think we're way behind with that kind of stuff, and with travellers even more so. So I gave him an indication that I was gonna, but I wouldn't admit it. And he said, "We can't afford to bury you," right? A little joke. And he meant it as well, right? So he sat down with me for about 2 hours and we had a conversation. And basically he just wouldn't let me out of the room. And he said, "Look, you need to find a new passion, a new purpose, meaning. It's what you need in life." And he said, why don't you try acting? Now, he said this because I had an encyclopedia knowledge of film, and all I did was go to the cinema. That's the only thing I left the house for, is to go and collect my social welfare, go and buy DVDs or go to the cinema. That's it. So I even got an example. I used to go to the cinema. I remember watching Sex and the City at 2 o'clock in the day. There was 88 people in the cinema, and I was the only man. But it was just an escape. So I said, okay, why don't I try acting? That's a light bulb moment. It was like a life jacket. So I said, yeah, I'll do it. And basically, I rang up the Abbey Acting School of Drama. Kathleen Warner Yates was on the other side of the phone, and a great teacher and mentor to me. She runs the Flying Turtles Productions now, actually. She's brilliant. And she said, have you ever acted before? And I said, no. And she said, why don't you try the Adult for Fun course? Now, I was depressed, you know, and you're telling me adult for fun. That's not. I knew I needed something intense, so I said, no, I need something more intense. And she said, why don't you try the scene study course? But she said, you might, you know, it might be the deep end a bit for you because they're all professional actors. And I said, no, I'll do that. Yeah, and so I showed up. I borrowed the money of family and all, and went to town, and I got around in a group, and I told them I had no experience acting, and everybody else all had experience. And I decided I was going to leave the room before the acting class started because I was terrified and wanted to run away. Before I got a chance, an improvisational game went underway, in which this kind of upper-class Dublin fella got in a scene with this black Brazilian man, and this fella was being very patronising towards this man, and for me, racist. And I kind of felt a bit of solidarity, having felt discrimination all my life as a traveller, and then also I was just depressed and filled with rage.
Yeah.
So they were looking for a volunteer.
How old were you? Around
20.
I was 20.
You were 20, sorry.
So they were looking for a volunteer to do a scene then with this kind of upper-class Dublin lad. And I volunteered, but you have to leave the room and get into character. I didn't really need to get into character anyway. I was just full of rage, you know. But when I got outside, I was like, do I go? I've got a chance to run now if I want. And just like bury my head in the sand like an ostrich and feel comfortable. Because we all want to feel comfortable. No one wants to feel discomfort, you know. And me, I was a pro at running away, you know, except for my fight. But everything else, I ran away from. So I broke through the door, and I created the scene. And the scene to me was a shop, and I was robbing the shop. And I started slapping the other actor in the scene. And I took off his shoes and his socks. And I was halfway taking off his tracksuit bottoms when the teacher came in and said, please stop, John, stop. And I ran out of the class. I ran down the stairs, the next stairs, and she shouted after me, John, come back. And I ran down Abbey Street, and she came out after me. She said, John, please, will you stop? And I said, okay. And I turned around. And she said, you're effing crazy. I just did effing there now. See, I'm at the centre of myself.
Thank you.
You're effing crazy. She said, but I like it. But don't ever hit any of my students ever again. And come back up to the class. So I went back up, and I got kind of this round of applause out of fear, I think. And I completed that course, and it just became obsessed. Like, it was like the only way I describe it that makes sense to me, and it might not make sense to anybody else. It's like discovering a different world.
But did you feel like you were becoming somebody different? Because normally actors or people who are on stage are somebody different.
Well, for me, it wasn't even that. It was more about I was discovering a part of me, and I was discovering that I could use this stuff in a well. All this stuff I was holding, there was weight on my chest, and I could use that, and it was cathartic. But it was like going into a different world. It was like a portal, and I jumped through a different portal. I was going, "This is a different world. What? Yeah. I never knew this existed."
That's what you always say about it.
Yes.
Yeah, even being an entertainer, like, you know, you're escaping from reality.
Escaping,
almost.
yeah.
Like,
And then I couldn't sleep that night. I went home and Googled how to become a better actor. You know what I mean? And I learned the lines that I think it was a 10-page play script, which is more than a film script to learn. I learned the lines by the next morning, 7 o'clock the next morning. And you have 8 weeks to learn the lines to do the final performance. But I was just like, yeah, learn the lines. I just became obsessed with getting better at it.
I think the creativity as well that you were creating through acting is also releasing all the emotions that you had, all the kind of negativity that was there.
It was therapy. That's what it was. It was really was therapy. Right in the moment where I was about to go self-destruct, and it came in and saved my life, and it was a life jacket, you know.
What's the first kind of film that you've recorded, or short film, or?
Well, I heard about auditions for King of the Travellers, which was like €1 million budget Irish film. Mark O'Connor was directing, and they were auditioning, and he was looking to cast real travellers.
Maybe we could show a clip of that.
Yeah, let's
hold that thought.
I will do.
Can we get that? So we get a clip of King of the Travellers.
Come on, it's a fight man coming through here. family Morehouse, a fighting breed descended from 5 generations of fighting men. This man's daddy, Black Martin, was the king, and he came from a long line of kings. He's the best man in 32 counties. He fights for the memory of his daddy and for the pride of his family. And this is my brother in arms, John Paul Morehouse.
Yeah, intense.
Could you tell us a little bit about that, actually?
Yeah.
It
So
is intense.
I was asked to audition for that. I got an opportunity to audition. I showed up about 2 hours early. I was that excited in town. And Mark O'Connor, the director, was asking a bunch of his travellers who never acted. I did, and he didn't know. Did we know what improvisation was? So making up a scene as you go along. And I said, yeah. So I volunteered to do a scene with Michael Collins, who's a veteran traveller actor, the first traveller actor ever. I'm only the second traveller actor. And I always looked up to Michael, you know, because he, in a way, he climbed Everest to know I could do it then. You know what I mean? If he did, I did it. He did Glen Rowe, which was a big deal.
Rowe, yeah. I've
you know
met him
what I
a
mean?
few
Like
times.
a traveller on screen. So I was in it. I found myself in a scene with him, and I held me home. And Mark O'Connor was like, "Who are you? How do you know about this? Blah blah blah." And then I was like, "Oh, this is good. This is a positive reaction." So I met him afterwards, and he said, "I'm going to write a part in for you." And I said, "Oh no, sorry." He said, "I'll get back to you." And then 6 weeks later, I was like, 6 weeks later, I haven't heard anything. Obviously, I didn't get it. He wrote a part into the script for me. And then I rehearsed for a couple of months alongside the lead, who was a childhood friend of mine and a good friend of mine I went to boxing with. And they ended up sacking him and giving me the lead. But he, fair play to him, and it's still a good friend of mine to this day, he wished me luck and actually was the one that said, you need to give it to John. You need to give it to John Connors. He deserves this. So that kind of opened up all the doors, you know.
Was it strange being a traveller, acting to be a traveller, like?
Look, you know, it doesn't even matter whoever you play, right, as an actor, you're just playing one element of you, right?
Yeah.
So I recently was in a film that I directed, and I'm playing a very, very evil character. Like, I would say the first truly evil character I've played. Because I've always played kind of anti-heroes. You know, ultimately they're good, but they're doing bad things. And they're kind of the best characters to play, because it's the grey. The black and white is not really interesting. But I played the first truly evil character. And I do it convincingly, I think.
What did you say? And you're getting your anger out as well.
Yeah, I do it
Wider,
convincingly
yeah.
because that's in me.
Yeah.
Evil is in me. Sincerely. And it's in you as well, and it's in you. But
Gee,
I'm
thanks.
very,
Yeah, of course.
it's in us all. I'm very
Yeah,
aware
yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you get all them different colours. So no matter who you're playing, you're putting something. If you're conveying it convincingly, that is in you. That doesn't mean that is you, but it's in you. So it's really exercising that colour that's in you, every different character, no matter who they are, because the exterior is irrelevant. It's all about the internal, what's going on inside, you know.
Do you have a favourite so far
Character that I
Yeah.
played.
that you can maybe identify with more?
I don't know about identifying, but my favourite, I played a character called, named Oliver in a film Stalker, which was my second film. And I co-wrote that with Mark O'Connor. He was the director of this, and of King of Travellers. And that was because I realised that acting, you have to really educate yourself in many ways, because I was playing a character who was homeless and who was really anti-establishment. So then I started to educate myself in that sort of politics, you know, and that really brought me forward years in my mind, you know, just from growing. And that whole experience was life changing, you know. And acting became bigger than just acting. Then, you know what I mean?
Will we have a little
Yeah.
watch of Stalker? Because
Oh,
I think
yeah.
we have a clip of it there
Yes.
that we can watch.
Yeah.
Maybe if you can roll Stalker for us. Tell us about that one. Like, who wrote the story of this one?
Me and Mark wrote it. So I was writing a play about mental illness that was sort of kind of based on my father. My father was a schizophrenic who killed himself when I was 8, and this is something obviously that was always going on in my unconscious and was resulting in destructive behaviour throughout my teens and unresolved trauma and stuff that I wasn't aware of, obviously. So I was obviously trying to express it then when I met Mark by doing the play, and it's still not fully aware of it. But I told Mark about my kind of story and I had, and he had an idea about this stalker, so we kind of combined both of them, wrote it together in about 2 weeks. We were the first crowd-funded film, so it was like the lowest budget film I've ever done, probably. 16 grand, I think we made it on. We shot it in 11 days. And it premiered the night before King of the Travellers, which was my first film, and both at Galway Film Flat. And that was received much better critically, and won an award at Galway, and did really well and got us in release. You know, and that was 15 grand versus €1 million budget with King of the Travellers. It just goes to show you it's nothing got to do with the budget.
It's just the storyline of it and the acting, obviously.
It hit home, and I think the acting as well, and I think the politics helped the film like this, because we don't really do political films in Ireland. We don't do kind of protest films as such.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a protest film in a way.
And what is the storyline of the film? Like,
so it's about a character named Oliver who's an erotomaniac. So a erotomaniac is essentially a stalker. You become obsessed with somebody. And whether it's platonic or romantic or whatever, it can be anything. And he has a very traumatic past and unresolved trauma. And he's very quirky. And he basically befriends this young man who was played by Barry Keoghan, who's now a superstar, you know, who's in the Avengers, and he's the new Joker and all that. And it was Barry's first real role. And he befriends him and becomes obsessed with him and wants to save him from a very toxic relationship he has with his uncle. And there's kind of sexual abuse involved. It's very dark. And it's about the homeless crisis. That's one of the kind of the subplots of the film. But yeah, it hit home with audiences who got to see it anyhow. But it's art house. It's not for everybody. And it's not exactly art house, but it's very independent. You know, even we shot it on a Canon Mark II 5D, which you wouldn't shoot a film on today. You know what I mean? But I mean, that was a part of the charm of it at the time.
Can you tell us a little bit about Patrick Ward and Love Hate? How did you get on there?
Yeah,
did you enjoy the experience?
That was
That's when I first saw you on screen myself.
That was brilliant. Yeah. Well, as I was rehearsing for King of the Travellers, I was boxing and still boxing and training away in Darndale Box Club, and a casting director from Love Hate came in, an assistant to the casting director of Love Hate, and she said they're looking for like tough looking fellas to play kind of, you know, bruisers, extras in Love Hate. And I wanted to get on a film set because I knew I was doing King of the Travellers and I didn't want to, you know, get stage fright by that time. So if I could get on any film set, I would do it. So I said to the casting director, is there any lines with any of these characters? He said, actually, there is one, but I can't cast you. You just show up on the day and, you know, basically fight for it. So I showed up on the day and I met Dave Caffrey, who was the director of Love Hate. And Dave lived in London for 30 years. Turns out Dave drank in a pub where I was born, the Caledonian Road, where my father would have drank. And probably brushed shoulders with my father, knew a lot of travellers, and we just hit it off like that. And I remember him saying, who wants these lines? And he's looking at me. I said, I want them. And then I read the lines, and I didn't know, like, you know, you don't kind of piss off people who were, you know, the writers or directors or whatever, you know, the production. I looked at the lines and I go, listen, I'm from Darndale. I know this world. They wouldn't say this. And he went, oh yeah, not about it. What would he say? And I said, whatever, this. So I did that, whatever that was. Right. With Tom Paul Lawler, aka Nidge. I did that scene, and then after that Stalker screening, Stuart Carnan, the Love Hate writer, came over to me, and he said, look, I've watched Stalker and King of the Travellers. I'd love to bring you back to Love Hate and turn your I know you were a special extra, turn you into a proper character. Would you be up for it? I said, yeah. He said, look, I was haunted from that improv that you've done, because it was better than what I wrote, he said. I said, really? Oh yeah. So I said, okay, this sounds great. And then a few months went by, I didn't hear nothing, and then all of a sudden I got a script. I got a script by email, and I was like, this is deadly. And that was season 4, came in for 3 episodes, and it was really intense. And then when that finished, my character leaves, and me and Stuart met up, and he said, look, we've a few different options. If you don't want to come back, you don't want to come back. If you want to come back, do you want to come back in a small way or a big way? I said, what do you think? I said, a big way. So we worked on the kind of character, the culture, and all that stuff to kind of get her. And I have to say he nailed it. But he's absolutely meticulous. And he's all about the specific. And that's what I learned then myself as a writer from him. You know, he kind of acted as a mentor for me.
Were you being stalked? on the streets for autographs.
Yeah.
Well, still to this day, that's just the name of the game now. But
Killed an age, like what?
I know.
Oh, really? Okay, so I didn't much love hate.
I know. The writer's fault, not mine.
I didn't want them to kill an age, like.
I remember doing the first episode, season 5, and there was this line that I did: "Take it back with you and use it to buy yourself a headstone," which was my character now showing that he's not a pacifist. You know what I mean? And I went to a UB40 gig, and the shirt was tore off me. I was scratched. I was like, they put me into the VIP because of that, and then the VIP did the same to me. And Ali Campbell himself demanded that I was taken out of the VIP, and I had to be taken out of there and put into like one of the balconies. But that was the mad love-hate fame, like.
Wow.
Unbelievable. What? Can I ask you about Today? Was one of the ones you did as well. One of the.
Yeah, Today Tristan Henu is a friend of mine. I met him on. He directed. I met him on Skunky Dog, a short, really successful short that fucking I hated. But anyway, it's for some reason won a lot of awards. It was by a really pretentious director. I know he's going to see this, but I don't care. He didn't respect anybody, so I'm not going to respect him. Anyway, he fooled a lot of people and won loads of awards.
I was going to ask to show it. Do you want me to show it?
Skunky. No,
Oh, sorry. Okay.
So Tristan came up with a short today and about a fella who was going to commit suicide in Connemara, and I said, yeah, let's do it. So we did it, and it did really well. And yeah, that was one of my kind of little favorite things I've done as well.
Will we watch a bit of it?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is brilliant. This is not Skunky.
Okay. Here we go. We have a look at Today.
Get us down now. Pop the bonnet and I'll take a quick look. Give it another try there. Looks like the battery all right. I have a set of leads back in the house. I could try jumping them for you.
Ah, jeez, that'd be brilliant.
I live a couple of miles back the road there. Do you want to wait here for me or come for the spin?
Yeah, I think go for a spin. Then we'll change the scenery.
Will you be all right in the transport box? It's a bit hard on the arse. Sorry, the transport box. Here, at the back of the tractor.
All right.
It's a bit hard on the arse on these roads. If you have a jumper or something, I'd bring it. Otherwise, your arse will be in bits. Make sure you hold on tight back there. It can get bumpy enough on this stretch. I'm Desmond, by the way.
Peter.
She's laughing because when we watched it earlier, we weren't expecting
we
to
couldn't
be told
hear
about
it.
in the track. And I was like, well,
No, that gets a laugh every time in the cinema.
because it's so serious, and then it's just like,
Do you know what that reminds me of? The Father Ted. Kind of the Father
Just
Ted
completely
kind of
unexpectedly.
I actually
hilarious.
loved watching that clip because that other actor, Lawler Roddy, a lot of people don't know about him, and he's like probably over 120 IMDb credits, and he is one of the best actors, like really one of the best I've ever worked with. He's from Belfast, and he's lived a very interesting life, but he showed up on that set as a Connemara farmer, and I didn't know
So to
nothing.
change the accent
It was
for the
so
Belfast,
easy
yeah.
feeling like a dub and a fish out of water in Connemara, acting with him because it was like working with Tristan's father, who is a Connemara farmer, and that is his tractor, and we are down there in his farm. You know what I mean? So this fella just became the character,
Right.
And he was just amazing, easy to work with. Like it was just like ping pong, you know.
Your face in it is gas. You're looking at him and just saying, what?
That's a hungover face. I was in character. Me and Lawler was drinking fucking poutine the night before and all
Well,
that
then I'd
shit.
say your stomach was pretty sick going back in the tractor, I can tell you. I'm just looking here at Cardboard Gangsters. I like the name of that, Cardboard Gangsters. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So
Brilliant.
Mark O'Connor, who was the director of King of the Travis and Stalker, and obviously we wrote Stalker together, he encouraged me to write a gangland film because coming from Darndale, and I had a lot of experience in that world and seen a lot of things in that world. And I was talking about kind of the Sunderworld figures that were portrayed as kind of psychopaths and gangsters and this, that, and the other. And I knew some of them. And some of them weren't that bad, actually, because life isn't always black and white, you know? And someone could be really nice to you and evil to somebody else. and I'm interested in that grey and that complexity. So I wrote the script, and it was years of the making, and we got turned down funding by everybody, and finally got it made. And it was the biggest box office hit of the year, but more than all Irish films combined that year. And they were all the ones supported by Screen Ireland, and then Screen Ireland refused to support us. So when I won the IFTA, that was one of the things I pointed out in order to just, to embarrass them.
Would you like to see a clip of it?
Yeah.
We would too.
This is your life.
Yeah, it's my life, yeah. I'm a bit young for this.
Big red book. Enjoy this. Cardboard to Gangsters.
Can't do anymore.
You can tell me anything. You can tell me anything. You can tell me anything, please. Please, love. Please. Okay, you can tell me anything. You can tell me anything. You can tell me anything. I love you no matter what.
I killed John Murphy, man. I killed John Murphy.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. That's shot now.
I did.
No, you didn't.
I did, man.
No, you didn't.
I blew his fucking head
No,
off.
you didn't. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it.
I did, man.
Stop it.
I did. I killed
You
him, man.
did.
I blew his fucking head off.
Don't, please.
I did.
No, please. No. No. Don't.
He's dead.
No.
He's dead, man.
Jesus.
He's dead.
Jesus. No.
Do you stay in character when you're doing a scene like that? It's quite intense.
Yeah,
How do you
when
come
you-
down from something like that?
I don't believe me personally in this whole, you become somebody else. I don't believe in that. I don't think anybody becomes anybody else, and I don't think anybody becomes a character because you're always aware of cameras looking at you.
Mm-hmm.
You're always aware there's lights here. You're not in a different world as this character. Like, that's silly, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's ego a lot of the times. I think there are actors that do that, like a Daniel Lewis, and I think he has to do that because there might not be in his life and past enough of the stuff in the well. Now in mine there is, so I don't need to be going staying in character. But in days like that, when you're doing a scene like that, you need your own time for sure.
Yeah.
Because I knew what was going on in that scene, and that wasn't written. Like, there was none of that written. I destroyed the room. The scene was Jay lies in his bed crying, riddled with guilt. That's it. The rest is all improvised. But I knew something was going to happen mad, because I was tapping into something which was guilt. And guilt is something that any human being can relate to. We all have guilt for things, no matter what. And it's situational stuff that you can apply to different lenses. But particularly in Ireland, we're experts at guilt and shame. That's what we're really good at, and no one is better in the world, and no one is more of an expert at beating beating anybody up than yourself. You are the expert at beating yourself up with guilt and shame. So that's what that scene was. Just an example of that.
It's a serious bit of acting, though. Like it's
Even for
really
your mother who's playing it there. It's
yeah,
like
Fiona, she's
such
she's one of the
intensity.
best. She's doing a one-woman show right now in Edinburgh, and she's been doing it a few years, and it's the best performance I've ever seen on a stage ever.
And she's
any
trembling.
Actor. She plays like 40 characters in the show. Fiona Tamley Hughes, she's incredible. And actually, we did the audition, and she was auditioning for a tiny role in the film, and I felt a connection with her. And I just said to Mark, I said, she's my mother. She needs to play my mother.
wow.
And we gave her the lines, and she just read the lines cold, and she was unbelievable. And I went, what the hell? I said, I need her, because I need to be on my toes against somebody that good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because they only bring you up. You know what I mean? You go down and you go up depending on the level of actor you're with in a scene.
You know, including that clip now as well. That's 5 times I think you've cursed him.
5 times a what?
You've cursed in the show.
I cursed
I'm only
again?
joking. No, in the
See,
clip.
English doesn't suit my soul.
I'm only joking.
I'm first speaking gibberish.
Come here, I hear you sing a song as well.
Oh yeah.
For occasionally after 15 or 20 points or something. Yeah.
You said you wanted a spontaneous interview, so here it is. Tinker's Lullaby is a great song. Pecker Dunn.
Yeah.
It is a great song. Yeah, it is great. Well, he's one of my heroes actually. Pecker Dunn. He was a great singer-songwriter, and he had no interest whatsoever in fame or acclaim or anything like that. Actually, he rejected it and turned down all the chances to gain success in his career, just because he was just the purest, you know. So his music, you can hear that in him, and it really resonates.
Will you sing it for us?
Sing it for us.
Please.
Okay. All right then. All right. I'll have to bring it down a bit and go rather than. I usually kind of project this a bit more, but we'll bring it down. It's no need for that. Go to sleep, my little tinker. Let all your troubles pass you by. For you have no place to camp now. Oh, that's a tinker's lullaby. Ever since you were a baby, cradled in your mother's shawl, society said they did not want you, and now you have no home at all. And your mother died and left you. You had to fend all alone, all in this land of saints and scholars, and still you have not got a home. Although your clothes are torn and ragged, and your hair is silvery gray, someday you'll die and go to heaven, and you will find a campground there. So go to sleep, my little tinker. Let all your troubles pass you by. Someday you'll die and go to heaven, and you will find a campground there. There you go.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
man, no one's going to bluff me.
Thank
Actually,
you.
what's interesting about that, and we're just singing that song and kind of what it's about kind of society's rejection of travellers. The last few days I've been on a bit of a mission against Dublin City Council, because for the past 25 years my family have been living in third world conditions in a first world country, with no clean running water, no toilets, no showers. And my grandmother is getting sicker and sicker and in and out of hospital with stomach problems. My mother's in bed right now sick, drinking a cup of tea from the taps and things like that. And I've been on a bit of a mission in the last few days against Dublin City Council, literally just asking for what everybody else has in the council house or council land, which is basic amenities, which should be afforded to all Irish people, considering we're in a very wealthy country, considering where we are in time. So something that I think it's important to say, because we've been ranting and raving about this the last few days, and we seem to be getting a bit of support from the general public, and I have been in touch with the council, and hopefully that's going to change. After 17 or 18 years, we got electricity once I did a bit of a press tour with Love Hate, and he promised to be out the week later to install toilets and showers, and we're still waiting, and that's 8 years ago. So hopefully, fingers crossed there.
Please God for you.
Yeah.
You mentioned your grandmother and your grandfather. Just to touch on the recording of Eden that you did before, because you said about telling the stories, and just tell us a little bit about Eden, because I thought it was really good.
Yeah, Eden was mad because I went over to Morocco in Marrakesh and the Atlas Mountains to do a documentary about this Irish humanitarian.
Okay.
It was over there saving the people in Morocco, let's just say. And I wasn't really interested in this documentary once I got over there, but there was something happening, and I could feel it. And all these kids come up to us and they were like, bonjour, bonjour, because they thought like we were French, because obviously they were colonized by the French. And I was like, we're Irish, and I got to know the people, and they love you once you're Irish. It's just great being Irish, no matter where you go in the world. I think it's a great passport to have. But anyway, we start just getting sweets for the kids, and we're just having fun with the kids. And this band came out, and they were playing the banjo, and their instruments obviously are very similar to the instruments, and their sound and their language, particularly the Bedouin, the Berbers tribe people, to Irish. So there's so many similarities, it's unbelievable. But in the moment, we were losing light, and you get the kind of magic hour, and I could just see something, and it was like this feeling I was getting of, wow, this is the way I grew up, but we're losing it. And these still have it now, and it's intact, but they're going to lose it too. And globalization is what's eradicating it, essentially. So while we were there, we had conversations, me and Tiernan, who was the DOP and editor and producer, and a good friend of mine, and we just decided to do something a bit different and experimental, and it was based on that sort of concept that we're losing culture, and I think it's very important, and how culture brings people together, in that sense of community. So that's what Eden was about.
Which when I was watching it myself, the clip off, which actually we'll show the clip
Yeah.
off it now and just have a look at it, if we could get the clip of Eden up there first, please.
I fear that the human race is advancing at such a fast pace that we are losing many of the very qualities of what it means to be human. This is my grandmother. I grew up listening to stories from her and my grandfather. Stories from the road. We were nomadic people forced to settle. Times change. People gathering around the campfire for stories, songs, and dance is an ancient practice. These campfire sessions is happening less and less. Times change. My fear and anxiety leads me all around the world, searching for those things. The Atlas Mountains in Morocco, the Berbers people still have most of those qualities. The children remind me of when I was a child. Wild, free, and happy. But in time too, they will lose that. Times are changing. Where do we go from here?
there we have it.
Great slow motion.
Yeah, it's very true. I think, like, you know, a few years ago, I was studying Travers music. It was one of the things I did when I was in Ballyfermot College, music. Like, I even sang Tinker's Lullaby with a banjo as one of the performance pieces that I had to do. Like, you know. But I don't know where I'll find it somewhere.
Don't be shy.
You're among friends.
I didn't do a good version like yours. But look, I'm pecking them. But the times are changing, especially for travellers. But like when I seen that straight away, and I'm thinking like the songs are being passed around, sitting around the campfire and all that. Like it has to be changing. Yeah.
One generation, I can just go like that. Like I grew up in a camp with 52 first cousins living in the camp with me, 12 aunts and uncles, God knows how many second and third cousins, grandparents, friends of the family, in a big huge encampment that resembled a reservation. And you'd beg your mother every night, can I go out to the fire, please, just to hear my grandmother or grandfather talk about the old days, the stories, banshees, fairies, leprechauns, family history, oral history, the songs, all that stuff.
I love the magic of all of that.
Yeah, and that's what it was. It was magical, but that's very rare nowadays because there's less and less camps. Just like there was, you know, nomadism was outlawed, and we were deliberately targeted, and there was assimilation policies brought in, and you had the 1963 report, an itinerancy that was headed by Charlie High, who talked about the final solution to the itinerary problem. That was an exact quote, less than 20 years after Nazi Germany. That was the sort of political culture that gave birth to the assimilation policies, to the discrimination, to the accepted discrimination from a state level, through that in turn turned into the media, and then it just became a part of the culture in Ireland. I mean, that was all a part of the reason. The reason basically is because we were seen as the ugly image of the tinker in the countryside after, you know, the country was blew up through civil war. And we wanted to rebuild the country and looked for American investment, and we had to eradicate the countryside of the image of a tinker. That's literally what they talked about in Darndale. So it's a long, ongoing discrimination that is very deep in the Irish psyche, and really the essence of it is shame, because we were seen as a reminder of the past, and we wanted to move on. And what was the image of an Irish person was a middle class Irish speaking farmer man. That was what it meant to be Irish. That was the image that was promoted all around the world, a man of air and all that. And if you didn't fit into that very insular identity of Irish, like if you were working class, poor, if you were a traveller, if you were Protestant, if you were any of those groups and many others, you weren't fully Irish. And unfortunately, we bear the brunt of a lot of that.
With all the intensity that comes with, you know, everything who you are, how do you relax? I mean, I know you have hobbies.
Yeah, no, 100%.
So tell us about them.
Swimming, but when I say swimming, I mean I just walk under the sea and just float like a blue whale. I just love it because for me, I'm just one of those brains that constantly goes. So I couldn't even sit down and meditate if I tried. My brain just won't allow me to. But when you jump in the sea and you're covered by water, right from there downwards, then you're forced to just let all the thoughts go, and it's a form of meditation for me. So I do that as much as I can, and then obviously watching films is a thing. Watching documentaries, I'm addicted to podcasts. Just listening to podcasts constantly. I need to stop actually because I'm finding myself not having a lot of quiet time. I'm constantly listening to something else because it's kind of like books, you know. And I learn a lot better verbally, you know.
And then living with Lucy, I'd say, was a bit of crack.
Actually, that was actually. She was lovely. Lucy was lovely. Now, I watched a few of her episodes, obviously, in preparation, just like I watched a few of your episodes. And so I seen she's an awful slagger. So I seen she was slagging people, and I said, okay, if that's what she wants, she's going to get that at me. So I just slagged her from the moment I met her. And me cat, she came in and she said she's allergic to cats.
I'm allergic to cats.
Then hated her straight away. So the cat went into the guest bedroom, and while we were talking, me and Lucy, the cat went in and on her bed.
Oh God!
I swear to God. And she walked in and she seen a big shit in her bed. And then I went around and told everybody Lucy shit in my bed. So that was the way of slagging her and getting her. But we had good crack together. Good crack, yeah.
She won't be having you back, no?
I won't be having her back. One time is enough. One time is enough. But you know what? She's a really genuine, down-to-earth person, and she pretends to, you know, to be like, not emotional, let's say, or, you know, or she pretends she's cold or something. I don't know, but it doesn't work.
Yeah.
She's a huge heart, you know.
We move on to chat about the one-man theatre show.
Yeah.
That was not so long ago, Ireland's Call. Maybe we might even have a quick look at it first, will we?
Yeah, let's have
we'll have a quick
a
look.
clip of that for you.
You're very prepared.
This is your life.
I peaked.
Growing up in Killock, me, Pat, and English only ever dreamed of getting out of the kit and going over to a beating. Ever since we watched Kevin and Perry go large.
Standing at the bus stop, I heard that voice again in my head say, "Don't do this, James. Don't do this."
Well, there you go, John. Tell us a bit about that.
You know, I was on Twitter one day, and I hate Twitter now, and I deleted my Twitter because it got me in a lot of trouble. But I seen Emma Kerwin, who is an actor, a writer. He put out, he's from this kind of neck of the woods, Emirates, and he put out a tweet, and it was about the Show in the Bag program that's in the Fringe Dublin Theatre Festival, and Fish Amble are behind it in the Irish Theatre Institute. The Show in the Bag is basically creating a show that you can put in the bag and tour everywhere, but you premiere it at the Fringe, and that's where you kind of get all the reviews and the hype, and then you go on the tour if you're lucky. So he put the link up for it, and I just clicked the link and just pitched something in that moment, like 500 words, I just top of the head. And I think it was pitching a musical, right? But like of a traveller busker going around Ireland singing or whatever. And so they called me in for an interview a few months later, and I think it was March 2018. And right before I went in, I just had this kind of epiphany that if this is the only show I'm going to do on stage, the only thing I'm going to do on stage, the only one-man show, do I really want to do this one-man show if I'm going around singing and kind of blah, 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 blah? And I thought, no. So I went, what would it be about? So as I was just walking in, I kind of started thinking, right, you know, intergenerational trauma, addiction, class, all that stuff. And I went in and pitched something. I don't know what it was, but it was kind of a disaster pitch, but there was passion there somewhere. And they were kind of going, oh, okay. And they said something to be very interesting. The judges, it was mad. They said, if we're going to go with you, we want this to be really radical. Now, I was used to being in the film industry where they're telling you to kind of tone things down. I'm going, what, really? Yeah. I said, well, I'm going to give you the radicalest show you're ever going to get. They went, okay. So they gave it to me. And I was meant to have it done by, I think, mid-August. And the day before the deadline, I hadn't written a word. 2 days before the deadline, I hadn't written a word. And then I started panicking. And I did what I do when I panic, it was put on The Sopranos, my favourite show ever. And, I started watching The Sopranos, and I just started texting a monologue into my phone. And I didn't even know what I was texting, honestly. It was a stream of consciousness, just texting. And then at about 6 in the morning, I finished like a season of The Sopranos. And I looked, and I copy and pasted it, and I put it on word counter on Google to find out how many thousand words it was. And I knew that about 8,000 words was an hour in which a one-man show was done. So it was 8,000 words over the 8,000 words. And I went, oh shit, that was too easy now. So the next night I went and wrote another 8,000 words, so that was 16,000 words. It was a 2-hour show. So then it was 2 or 3 weeks of cutting it back, and then I basically did a half-a-day rehearsals and got on stage thinking, I'm not going to be able to do this, and then just basically faked it, and somehow it worked. And then once I did those initial 11 shows in Bewley's Cafe for the Dublin Fringe, then I got a tour, and when I got the tour, then it kind of came into its own and evolved, and really as a show, like, you know.
It's definitely different from what you've done before.
Yeah. And look, that's why I wanted to do it as well, but also just talking about important themes, but shining the light in the darkness too. Like the first 20 minutes, you know, is like, it's comedy. Like I did the Writers' Week in Listowel, and it's a very rural, middle-class writer audience, older people. And the first 20 minutes, I'm talking, there's drugs, there's debauchery, there's everything. And half the room left in the little church down there, the theatre, literally half the room. And I'm going, don't leave, because that's exactly the point where they all left. Then we go deep and we go psychological, and we go into the trauma, we go into the history of Ireland in the last 50 years, we go into the clerical abuse, and we go into the reasons why, we go into the spider web of this character, Jason Connolly, the spider web of his family trauma and his family tree, you know. And they all left at that point, like 40, 50 of them left at that point. And then by the end of it, I got a standing ovation, and instead we did a 3-hour Q&A, and it turned out 6 of the people in the audience, older people, went to the industrial schools or the Magdalen Laundries. And it ended up being one of those kind of great Q&As, because I did a Q&A after every show. I did 86 shows all across the world, and I did a Q&A after each show, which was an experience in itself. And you're kind of doing an open group therapy thing, and it was very interesting, very draining sometimes, and another time brilliant. And you know what I mean? But tried to put everything into the show, all the different colours, you know.
John, we're coming to the end now of the interview, and thanks very much for coming along. Where will we see you next?
The Black Wealth is a film that I directed and co-wrote and acted in, and that's about intergenerational clerical abuse and how we inherit trauma, and it's set in the Dublin inner city. And we kind of masquerade it as a gangster film, but it's not really. And there's never been a film like it in Ireland. And it's a film that got rejected by all the funding institutions, but we finally got funding, and it's going to be another Rage Against the Machine. So that's going to be coming out by the end of the year.
I'm looking forward to seeing that
You're
myself.
a Rage Against the Machine in yourself.
100%.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure
Thanks
to
for having
interview
me,
you.
both.
John,
Thank you.
really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
That was wonderful, Stephen, wasn't it?
Absolutely,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Folks, in next week's show, we'll be meeting singer Alana Hennessy and the founder of Miss Ireland, Sharon Hennessy. We'll see you then. Thanks very much for tuning in.
Thank you so much. See you next week. Bye-bye.